We very rarely agree on anything at TTE Towers, but one thing we can all agree on at the moment is that the football is. We're in a situation where every single game is absolutely dire to watch. Again, we come back to the same old question on this pod. What can we do differently? After last night's turgid second half in particular, we move on to extra in the league on Saturday with a desperate, desperate need for a win. Joining
So if you
me,
were wondering if this was going to be the positive pod that you were looking for, out of this week, no, no, wait, no, it's going to be okay. We'll find the positives, right, Ben? We'll find the positives.
will we? Will we?
We'll go looking. Name positive is that I'm eating my lunch. We're recording at a slightly different time than usual. So hello, YouTube watchers. Good to see you. I'm having some chicken nuggets. They're very
Ross,
tasty.
Ross is aggressively waving some processed breaded meat at
No,
me.
no, no. This is panko fried, excellent chicken nuggets. So if you hear me chewing though at any point today, listeners, I apologize profusely. There are many things going on in the football world right now in Maine that I'm always running from thing to thing. But still, Reading is my primary concern, obviously.
Well, he's not running from this pod, and he's not running from Reading Football Club. So we're here till the bitter end. It's episode 434. We give thanks and praise to Voldemort and ZT Said Films.
Indeed.
Going well. The new series. What are
Nice.
we on now? Episode two.
I think episode two. I think we just had episode two, right? We had the
Yeah.
arts most spicy, and
Art's most spicy number two.
arts most spicy number two. Well, that's a very different thing. That's after a night at the curry house.
True.
So,
True.
hmm hmm
And thank you to the Amazons for their my blood in my blood, my
Yeah,
blood,
appreciate
football
it.
blood.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it as always.
we're just going to get straight into it. Let's do that now after this short break. Right, Ross. I feel like a cough is
It's
arranging in my
hanging out
throat.
in there. You've got a
Yeah,
frog in your throat.
it's about to be unleashed. So I'm going to try and get through this little intro part two quickly.
Okay.
So let's start with Mansfield. Um,
Okay.
1-1 draw. Yeah, same old, same old, same old, same old. We've
It,
obviously got the MK Dons results to talk about as of yesterday. So where do we want to go with Mansfield? Should have won, could have won, didn't win.
Do
People
you
aren't
think do
happy.
you think we should have won? I guess that's the question. And I think that the question almost it doesn't like center around Paddy Lane's miss, but like whenever you are thinking about performances and the opportunities that you didn't take, I feel like you think about the misses, and that was a particularly bad one. And I know you've had some concerns about Lane more than I have over the last few weeks, and I thought this was kind of a game where you could see some of those issues coming in. Again, don't think they're entirely down to him, but for as much as I criticize Noel Hunt, if a player slides the ball to you, obviously like 2 or 3 yards right in front of net, and you sky it, out to the left, then
Mm.
that is partially you to blame there for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's on him as a professional football player, and I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, they get paid millions of pounds to play in League One, but like seriously, mate, like, do you know what I mean? Like that is there
Got
were
to
people
finish that one.
yeah, I mean it was a really dark one to miss that, and quite rightly people were kind of like, well, when was the last time we had a miss like that? And the only thing I can think of straight off the bat to answer that question is the Zhao miss against
Yeah, I
Barnsley.
knew you're going there. Joao at
You know,
Barnsley. That's just one of the
it
worst.
is up there with one of the worst misses ever, and it won't do him any confidence at all. He is a man who is in desperate need of some streak of form. He played
Yeah.
last night, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we focus on that. I mean, after the game, Noel Hunt said that we let Mansfield off the hook. I,
Yeah.
I, I don't know what game he's watching, to be honest with you. I really don't. I mean, if you're talking about that miss, maybe, but overall, performance-wise, I mean, different planet, mate. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, and,
Yeah.
it's getting really, really difficult to keep, trying to defend some of these things when he comes out with this nonsense after the game. I'm a bit disappointed that we didn't take all 3 points, but there were lots of little things where we let Mansfield off the hook. I mean, do you want to start with that as well, Russ?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a team that Mansfield Town had won just two of their last 16 away fixtures before this. So it wasn't like we were playing a team that, were going to come in and really, shake us up and cause us issues. I don't know about, I think, we're letting Mansfield off. We're referring to we're referring to like the miss and a few of the other chances that didn't really go, the way we wanted. But if you go and look at the shot map, and I put this up on my Bluesky, what you're going to see is just a dearth of shots in the center of the box. So we had more shots in this game than the opposition, which is certainly not something that we tend to do. So that was good to see at least. But if you go and look at those shots, Mansfield had 7 in the box to Reading's 6, and 3 of those shots that Mansfield generated were right in the middle of the box, right in front of the goalkeeper. So this is the kind of chance that like we want to see more often, and we want to see our team be able to generate. And I think I said like if you get most of the shots, especially in the second half, were taken from the cow pasture, sort of outside of Lewis Wing's range. So many of those shots coming from far Lewis Wing range on that particular time. So yeah, it's just tricky. We've talked a lot about formation changes and things like that. And I think, as you know, we've already talked about Lane. There's there players that need to kind of step up, in terms of how they're playing too. But you put them in a 4-2-3-1. The idea is that it's, simple for the players to understand. It's a formation that they probably played in academies and things like that growing up, and they can, interpret their roles, go and do whatever they want, very Jose Mourinho style almost. And the issue with that, the flip side of that, is that everyone's got beaters for it. So in the second half, for example, we had these kind of two, sitting midfielders in Savage and Wing. Well, Mansfield realized that they could just push their two up front to sit on both of our sixes in build up. And that led to us just sort of having to go around to the fullbacks out, looking for space out there, and it just not really working. And we'll talk about it a little bit more as it relates to MK Dons as well. But the width in the team in that particular formation really suffers. And I think that's something that, will affect how Daniel Chirwa plays, because he seems to be someone who's better in a little bit of space. Lane appears to be better running into a little bit of space as well. Or just when Lane comes into contact with other players right now, he just bounces off them. He's not physically where he needs to be in this league. And I think that's actually a little bit of something that I'm becoming a bit concerned with as well as I watch this team this season, is that right at a time when football appears to be going in this very physical direction with some very, a lot of very big forwards and, set play that are like dialed up to, try and create a header chance and things like that. Right at that time, we've gone and bought a bunch of players who have quite small physical profiles, or brought in players with small physical profiles. Jack Marriott is taking that and just doesn't matter, obviously. Like, it doesn't always matter what size the player is. But yeah, just kind of looking at the team, it's just lacking a bit of oomph at times for sure.
They're lacking a heck of a lot of oomph.
Yeah.
Let's stick on Marriott. 5-5. Without him, we would be well in the relegation zone.
Without hit
To
Marriott, yeah.
be
Without
honest.
Marriott, we'd be in serious trouble. Without Pereira as well, we would be
Yeah.
in trouble right now. And Pereira didn't even have that great of a game. He didn't have that much to do
No.
on Saturday. But without him, if you take away or if you add back in the goals that we would have conceded without him, I think we would be bottom of the league. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, 4-2-3-1. I mean, it's this is part of the reason I wasn't suggesting this is the formation we go to, because I just think those two deep playmakers in maybe like Wing and Savage together, it's just too easy to beat. Other managers know what they're doing. I think there's a general question for you and for fans as well, like here at the moment, do we have a Lewis Wing problem? I think the best half of football we've played this year was the first half against Wrexham, in which where Lewis Wing was not playing. Now, obviously, he wasn't playing yesterday, and Reading looked awful. So to take everything here with a grain of salt. But I just think that, we're constantly having one of our best playmakers drop all the way back into the center back line or the right back line or something like that. And then he's also the player who's being asked to do the most chance creation and things. So by the time that we've wheeled Lewis Wing up the field like siege equipment, the opposition can get their entire defense back, and have no problem whatsoever. And the last thing I'll say on this game, because I know I'm just wittering on now, but I think that Sim kind of like showed a touch map from this game whereby it's like in front of the box is lava. Right. We just never really got to the front of the box. And that's kind of like a place where you would see a lot of those sort of just outside the box shots and dangerous things coming from, or passes past that last line of defense. We're not getting into place in the first place to actually make those passes that would create those shots right in the middle of the box, like I was,
Mhm.
saying we're missing right now. And so if we can't get into that first area, in front of the box, we're just going to continue to struggle getting that ball into the box for a shot. So, yeah.
My overall, we've started the pod, in a fairly negative way, and I think being rational for a second in terms of the expectations and taking out all the hyperbolic nonsense and everything else. When we went into that game, Mansfield were very near the bottom of the form table over the last 6 games. Now, the league position puts them pretty much bang in the middle of the league over the last 10 games before they came to us.
And super injured, by the way. I think that was
They,
mentioned on the thing. They had a bunch of injuries. They had a guy, I was listening to the pregame thing that Ryan did, at the club. And I think they mentioned that one of their center backs currently has never played center back before this season. And so he's now like learning this on the job,
yeah.
basically.
And so, when we go behind 7 minutes into the game, instantly we are on the back foot because we're not scoring a lot of goals. Yes,
Mm.
Jack Marriott got us out of jail again on the 71st minute, but there is a huge chunk of time in that game that is nonsensical, backward footballing philosophies that are evident all the way through the team. Look at the possession. We had 60 to their 40 in terms of percentage. They had in total 14 efforts on goal, and we had 16. So, with that amount of possession, you would be anticipating that we would have been able to convert just a little bit more than the one goal that we got. Okay. You fast forward again to last night, or, Tuesday night, if you listen to this on Thursday, which you will be. Again, absolute nonsense. First half, all the possession, all the opportunities, but everything about that forward line and that attacking prowess was weak. It was feeble. And bearing in mind, we were playing a team that I think they made like 10 or 11
They made
changes from
11
the weaker team.
changes. Yeah, yeah. And
It is,
they were playing U18 and U21 players. If you go and look at the thing that I started referring to last night, because it was really it was actually really good and good perspective, was I actually just started looking at like Milton Keynes like sports sites and stuff like that, just to kind of like see what they were saying. And they were encouraged by the performance from some of their youngest players,
outrageous. They,
basically.
they weren't in a game for 45 minutes.
No, yeah.
Second half, they probably wavered. And I know we're bouncing around here, listeners, but it all leads into the bigger picture. The fact that ultimately, at the moment, on the footballing side of this football club, it is failing dramatically. And you look at the quality of the players that we had in the team against Mansfield. Just as a reminder here: Pereira, Ahmed, Burns, Dorset, Jacob Doyle, Wing, Savage, Chilwell, Marriott, Lane. Yeah, all of those players that have enough experience to at least take the games to Mansfield at home.
Lane
But
won League One 2 seasons ago,
there you go.
right? Like these are all players. He scored a bunch of goals, played 40 odd games. Like these are players that I just say again. And Marriott like has been great so far. Like that finish
Of
this
course,
weekend
yes.
was possibly the best of the lot. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
players are there. I like Lewis Wing. We know is a fantastic player. Like for as many like criticisms as as I will sometimes pull out and Ben will defend him against. Most teams in this league would be very happy to have Charlie Savage and would find good use for him. I just not, you just can't really have that the team is not at the quality
No,
to the
it's
fact that we
not.
lost some of these players.
Matt Ritchie, let's take Matt Ritchie in isolation, right? He's been at the heart of what, two goals prior to this
Yeah,
was
yeah,
was involved again in the third goal, as in the first goal on Saturday, but the third goal overall in the set. Why not start him?
yeah.
What are you if you can only get 45 minutes out of him, which I don't think is the case at all. Why are you not looking at the last two goal involvements and saying, actually change the game? We haven't conceded a goal since he's been on the pitch in those two games. Why are you not starting him
Yeah,
at
yeah.
home to Mansfield on a Saturday at 3 o'clock? I know that's irrelevant, but you know what I mean. Why not just go for the game?
But
We
again,
get to
though,
61 minutes and he's swapping the fullbacks again.
no, you're right. You're right. But I think that it is just like we're because of how the team are playing, we're in this like state right now whereby the best Reading player is the one who's not on the pitch. Like always, because as soon as they get onto the pitch, they have to sort of like actually like they have to start contending
Yeah.
with what the structure is around them and this sort of horseshoe of doom, or horseshoe of sadness
Well, yeah, we're going to
that
get onto that because
emerged.
I didn't know what on earth you were talking about last night. I had no idea. I was looking at it and I was, on commentary and I was moving around again. Is that even a horseshoe? I thought
Yeah.
horseshoes were, like semicircles.
No, it's a horseshoe. It was. Do you want me to explain this now?
No,
No?
I'm still on my
Okay.
rant. And
All right, sorry.
what I'm
Continue your
saying is
rant.
I've had enough. I've
Yeah.
literally had enough because it's turgid, it's lifeless, it is ununique, and it is honestly at the point now where I cannot fathom watching any more of this complete nonsense. And what is, regardless of your view as a listener of Rob Coig and Todd and the new ownership, what is incredible to me is that they stood, Rob stood on the pitch last Thursday and he talked about this brand of football that he feels that we're playing and that Noel is our guy. And my heart just sank. And I'm not for 1 second expecting to get up and go, everything's terrible. But with that, it almost created this absolute wave of apathy within the fan base because there'll be loads of people that are not vocal and they just go to the games and it just passes them by and great. And there'll be loads of people that are a lot more vocal than me and Ross. But I cannot understand the logic with saying, bearing in mind that we are, a point off the relegation zone currently with 10 games played, sorry, that he is now getting this back in confidence of the owner in front of a live audience. It's not even as if it was in like a printed form or it was taken out of context. He's
Right.
literally said that in front of a collection of Redham fans and said, he's our man, we're going to stick with it. And if it goes wrong, have a go at me. That's not how this works.
Right, right. If it goes wrong, we might go down. Is the
Yeah.
problem. I mean, like we're still playing after the weekend. I mentioned this last week, but on expected points, we're in the relegation zone right now. So we're right. I mean, like we're ahead of where we should be really, because we have players that, like Pereira, like Marriott, who can do more with little. But yeah, that particular comment it was tricky. I think we talked before that Coig never had to fire a manager at Wickham. And I think that, he mentioned he's not really a fan of firing managers and doesn't necessarily think that makes, players better. I think it does, unfortunately. Like, I mean, like a bad coach is not going to have as much to say to his players as a good coach. A good coach with good ideas is always going to, just be able. I mean, sorry, let me put that another way. A good coach, you're going to have a better chance of the, good ideas actually being imparted into your, fullbacks, your wingers, whatever you are. A bad coach is, yes, not going to suddenly like make the players so much worse, but they're not going to provide that upside. And also like managing the game, that's important too, and that has a huge amount of has a huge impact on, how or what results you end up getting, as much as working on the training pitch does. It's just managing the game itself and what happens during the game in terms of like your substitutes and things like that. And again, like I think that Noel may well be a good coach one day, but I think it has just come a little bit early. And the worry for me is what does the footballing structure look like at the club right now to tell Kuig, this
Yeah.
from a footballing perspective is terrible. Just it's bad. Like and we have obviously Joe Jacobson, who is I'm not 100% sure what his role is, but obviously a more football savvy extension of Kuig basically at the club. But that does make you wonder, kind of, if that's your first job in football, like how much are you going to push back against the guy that's given you that? For me, like we knew that, for instance, Mark Bowen was pushing the board to get rid of Paul Ince before the
Mhm.
board eventually did that season. And any good director of football right now would be, if not like
Same.
assessing all of the replacements and decide and
Yeah.
looking at like the cost, the cost value proposition, they should at least have, like I would have expected to hear some rumblings in the press that at least some managers are being
Yeah.
sounded out by now because,
Look, I
but I
mean,
just, yeah.
look at Luton. Matt Bloomfield's gone, and they are
hmm
mid-table
Wickham got
in
rid
the
of their
league.
manager as well.
Yep. And
Yep.
all right, they are on the way up. League position doesn't reflect that yet, but they are getting better results and they're playing better football. But there are a lot of clubs already hitting the panic button. And when you look at the top of the table, when you look at those teams that are in and around the areas that we want to be, we're on 10 points. Stevenage are on 25.
And Stevenage aren't a team that we're expecting to be up there at the end of the season
But
necessarily. But I know the Stevenage manager now is, hotly. I think that the Stevenage manager, some of the rumors are that the Stevenage, I'll say this for the fourth time, the Stevenage manager is a hot commodity, I think, for some of
yeah,
these League One clubs that have gotten rid of their manager recently. They may be looking at him.
I just I'm at a loss to describe it. And if we move on to last night's game, there were there were elements of the first half being really, really good, really, really positive. I think there was some intent there to get the ball forward. I think years on was impressive considering he's had about 4 years on
Good
the
to see him
sideline.
back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It was really good to see Ed back.
I think he was linking up well with Akine Peters, who probably did his best stuff in the first half. They were trying to switch it from wing to wing. John Ryan was getting forward. I think he was probably up there with man of the match. Shea Spencer in the middle was trying to move things forward. And then it's like they're going at half time, and it's almost like they've been told to do the complete opposite in those 10 minutes or whatever.
hmm
And they just came out and they were an absolute shell of a side. And MK Dons were able to soak it up in the first half and ride out the pressure, which I think only really led to one really good chance, which was Ben Elliott right at the very end of the half. Second half
Yeah.
was up there with probably the worst I've seen for a long time, and
Yeah.
and it was absolutely baffling because by no means were they world beaters in the first half, but as I said, there was some intent there and there was some progression to move the ball up the pitch quickly and go through the transitions. The second half, I mean, off the ball, they were as bad as I've seen them this season.
Yeah.
For me, there was no forward movement at all. There was no running into space. There was no one wanting the ball. They all went missing, to be honest. And it was just a travesty that second half. It really was.
Well, I think because so let's talk about this. This was really a game that just kind of showed off how limiting the 4-2-3-1 can be. This game we had no width whatsoever. The average position of every player is within the half spaces. So there's nobody outside of the half space. There's nobody out wide. Milton Keynes, had that outlet to kind of go out and around if they wanted to, because it was taking us a little bit of time to get back over there. When we had the ball, and we had an awful lot of the ball in this game, we, especially in the second half, opened up an almighty horseshoe of sadness. Now, a horseshoe of sadness is, if you watch England frequently, you're probably aware of this. But basically, that's when your team is looking to attack. They've holding possession for a long time, but their possession is not necessarily full of intent, and they just end up sort of going in a U shape back and forth across the opponent's half, not managing to penetrate into the middle of the opponent's half, whereby you can create dangerous chances and things like that, but instead cycling from the left side back around through the defenders, through the center backs to the right side, trying that side, That doesn't work. Coming back on around, trying the left side, rinse and repeat until you lose the ball. And that was what Reading looked like yesterday. So I pulled their pass map on Y Scout to just kind of have a look and see what what that looks like. And basically, it looks like a big C, like a Lego man's hand, or something like that. Yiadom was the one of the few players who was able to sort of push out of the shape that he maybe been told to be in, because he's the only one who's sort of a bit of an outlier in the pass map. But everyone else, again, is just sitting in these little setups along the wing, on both wings, and it just means that there's no one in the middle. There's always this huge gap in the middle of the opponent's half that no Reading player seems like they ever like. Marriott goes in there during league games, but no one else seems to want to go in there. And they've dropped this, like, obviously in a 4-2-3-1, you've got this 10 that you drop right in there. But it just the actual passes. Elliot was the 10 yesterday, and the number of passes to Elliot, it's so few. They're not actually getting the ball to that player in a place that can hurt the opposition again. So, yeah, this is wild. The team produced less than a goal of expected goals against Milton Keynes's U18 and U21s. To the goal that Reading scored in this game was their best XG chance of the whole thing. So it's right in the middle of the goal, and it's not that far out. But there's how we got that was so lucky. I mean, you were on comms, and you were starting to talk about, we were on our way to penalties, or 12-yard kicks, or whatever nonsense you call it. I don't remember. And then the goalkeeper's just wet himself basically and allowed us to win that game by, I don't know what's happened there. Like, I said in the group chat, I think he probably lost the ball in the floodlights or something, because he just runs to the wrong area. So I think he's chasing something and then realizes that he hasn't
Yeah,
actually found the ball.
he got it all ends up. He
He
really did get
really
it all
mucked
ends
that
up.
up.
And I think, on reflection, was it a good finish? Had to be there, I guess. Good positioning, but the goalie should have catched it, ugh, caught it all day long.
The goalie should still be in his net at that point, or he's just got to actually like get the correct angle. But that was like a large part of our less than one XG, and another one came from the ball that was kind of going out of play, and then it hit the corner flag, and Daniel Chirwa just happened to get there first and created a chance for Elliot out of that. So outside of that, there was just very, very little creatively, and I think it just speaks to, again, like, I think what Noel is kind of doing is trying to set them up in what he perceives to be a solid formation, and it's sort of like setting them up to be difficult to beat. But they just don't really seem to have many instructions in terms of attacking, other than go out there and express yourself. But teams are just in a different place than they were like 10 years ago. It's just not really. I don't know. I think you need a little bit more instruction in this day and age.
Yeah. You listened to episode 434 of the Tilehurst End. Are we venting? I suppose
Kind
we are.
of. It's difficult. Like, I'm aware
I'm
right
just
now,
bored,
listeners.
Ross. I'm just
That is
fed
the
up.
main thing. I am just bored. Like, that's the main
Hate it here.
listeners. Like, I'm not trying to be negative constantly right now, because I'm like really aware of it, and it must be kind of draining. And it's like draining to listen to, and it's draining to watch. I tell you that much. But yeah, I mean, it's dull, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
it's like, what if Yap Stam, but we're losing too. But I guess, we're not really losing necessarily. I mean, it is like, maybe it's more Yap Stam than I thought, actually. A terrible 1-0 win against MK Dons. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the two games.
Hmm.
That was the two games that we've had.
That was the two
Um,
games. Not much else to them, really, is there? I
no,
mean,
not much else to say, really.
uh,
Delighted for Sean Patton. Really, really
oh,
good
yeah.
piece
Yeah,
from
that's worth
Chelsea.
saying, actually. From way up north in Ireland, too.
Derry.
From Letterkenny,
I thought it was
which
from
is.
Derry. Didn't he come from Derry?
No, I thought well, hang on a minute. Now we're going to start inflaming tensions.
Are you talking about his last team?
No, I'm talking about where he's from. I thought he
Okay,
was from
I'm
Letterkenny.
talking about his last team. I'm convinced he was from Derry.
I see.
He played for Derry.
Okay. But yeah,
Well,
I mean, like,
let me goggle it.
I'll let you goggle it. He had a lot. That's probably how he says it in his accent. He had a lot of energy when he came on. I mean, like he hasn't had time to have it beaten out of him yet. But he was like hassling some of the fullbacks when he did come on.
I've accidentally Googled Sean Pertwee.
Wow, I don't even know. Oh, is that one of the old doctors?
What?
Not one of the Doctor Who. Oh no, that's John Pertwee. Sorry,
No,
I'm
he was
just.
in Dog Shoulders. Dog
Oh,
Shoulders? Oh my days. Dog Soldiers.
he was
He
in
was in
Dog Shoulders.
Bottom.
Yeah.
He was in Other Things.
Okay, like Dog Shoulders. Yeah, the excellent movie.
Um, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure he played for Derry. Hold on a minute. Just
But
hang
yeah,
on, shall we?
he seems kind of exciting. And it's good to see another. It's good to
Previously
see.
played for Derry.
There
There
you
you
go.
go. Right, we can
Perfect.
move on now.
Right, played for Derry. Sounds very Irish, according to Ryan. But
Yeah.
yeah, good to see him get a goal into an empty net. But he had to be there, and there were two Reading players actually, like right around that. They almost ran into each other, but somehow two Reading players had managed to get free. Right in the gap that the goalkeeper had left. But yeah,
Should we do the mailbag? There's a lot in it.
let's mailbag. Let's do it.
Let's mailbag it. Right. Normally, after some turgid games, shall we say, people don't really have much to say.
Right.
But today, the mailbag is bulging, and I'm deliberately doing those pauses because
Yeah.
I think it's dramatic.
Okay. Okay. It's not to save like to get some time to find the mailbag entrance.
No,
No, no, it's
absolutely not.
dramatic. Yeah.
Let's start with the most popular man in Reading at the moment, Chris Scott, who actually won the raffle, ironically. Um, some people call him a troll, some people call him a truth sayer. Um, some people are just indifferent, I don't know. But basically, he said, how bad do you think it'll have to be before the owners take action? The stadium attendance is on a downward trend and atmosphere is non-existent in the bowl during games. Over 2,000 season ticket holders are staying away. Crikey.
Yeah.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, no club playing this way, no club playing this poorly is growing any brand. They must be aware of this. Um, yeah, I mean, look, we talked a little bit about that in the recap, didn't we, around Rob Coig's Q&A last
Hmm.
Thursday. It seemed like an interesting, well,
It's a really good
I
point.
respect the endeavor and I respect um the reason for doing it. I think it's just a bit of an odd time. I think like he felt he had to get in front of a few things. But for me, all he did was just confirm that we might be stuck with Noel Hunt ball for a long time.
I found it a little bit concerning that we were talking about next season because it was October. Like, it's October 1st, I think, when that came out, or October 2nd, maybe when that happened. And if we're writing off the whole season now, then it could be a very, very long season. And as we talked about before, other teams in League One have now made switches when their teams have been playing, even better than we have so far. Luton obviously were a team with more resources than us at the start of the season, but I think ambitions wise, I think those two clubs are in a similar-ish place right now. Like Luton were a much smaller club than Reading for most of the 21st century. So I think it's, even though they've had that recent Premier League history, I think it's fair to say that Reading and Luton would be clubs with similar ambitions of being, a challenging championship team. And they've seen fit to go ahead and make that switch from a manager who did very well in League One last year. So they still don't feel confident enough to do that. I think that if the team sits in the relegation zone for longer than 2 weeks, then that will start to that will start to really pick things up a little bit. But I do think that, for the reasons we've stated before, Kuig is going to be hesitant to get rid of Noel. But I just think that we know, we've had 50 games. We know what Noel's strengths and weaknesses are. We know what kind of club we want to be, and we have a mismatch. So I don't know. I think the sooner the better. And it is a little bit concerning to me that it feels like we're writing off the season in October. So yeah.
Well, I think we are at this point. I mean, that leads us nicely on to Andy Taylor, for friend of the show. connoisseur of cold beer in the Dolan.
Hmm.
If what Coig says is true and they're not looking to get rid of Hunt, can you see us being in a relegation battle? League Two would be absolutely devastating for the club. Yeah, it would. It would, and I would like to think that there is enough about them for them to understand that actually being in a relegation battle is going to be absolutely impossible. To be in that situation, given the caliber of the teams that there are currently, it's unthinkable that we get dragged into that. And going back to what Chris said, I think that come November, the next international break, which I think is the middle of November, maybe.
I think so, yeah.
If this next block of games doesn't yield a good couple of wins, and I mean a good couple of wins, I think they're going to pull the plug on it, regardless of what they've said. I think they have to, because otherwise it's just going to spiral into a winter of discontent, and it's going to be very, very difficult to get out of that. The
Yeah.
players look like they're pretty drilled to play a certain way at the moment, and it's killing us. It's absolutely killing us in games. So, the second, sorry, not second, the next international break, I think will be telling.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that obviously, I think Mark Mayo in the group chat, ex of this parish, pointed out that, Coeg's private thoughts will be different from his public thoughts. So, what he shared there at the Q&A, the fans forum or whatever, may well be, the typical kiss of death in the Premier League, the board's vote of confidence, or whatever. I'd like to imagine that there's some element of that in there, but again, for reasons such as track record, I think that it could be longer than we expect. I think also he'll think about how long it took Sellers to kind of get things changed around and kind of make tweaks. But Sellers did that after he had about 20 games, and we had the kind of like bright sparks that he had brought through Tyler Binden and some other players, through the cup games and things like that as well, which he seemed to take a little bit more seriously. So yeah, yeah, it's tough. It's tough right now, but I think that we're probably going to be. I think we're probably going to have Null for a little bit longer than some of us who are watching week in, week out would want. But what can you do?
Niall's gone in early, possibly the earliest question we've ever had for
Okay.
questions we didn't ask for. He says, I'm going early for a question for the pod. This was literally at 21:57 on Saturday after the draw. I was going to say defeat then. Felt like a defeat against Mansfield. Do you think that Hunt feels any pressure or has any pressure to perform? All the noise from the owner is that he's their guy. He's playing great football. He's not. And there's no consideration that they'll change the manager. It feels like he could be as bad as you like, knowing nothing is going to happen. I don't think he's under pressure, no.
He doesn't. I don't know if he. The only. Okay. I was also under the impression a week ago that he wasn't under any pressure, didn't think that he was under any pressure at all. And I think that, again, like kind of getting at like what I was saying with the I'm talking about Noel Hunt at the Q&A. Obviously, like all of the noises there were, hey, he's great, he's our guy, blah blah, all this kind of stuff that unfortunately, it doesn't hold true with the reality of the football right now. But I think that the fact that they addressed that first, and that was the first question that they went straight to, means that at least the club is aware that there is pressure now. And, while they are where they are, they're not playing great football. They're sitting, ahead of where they should be. They're getting results through, some really lucky things or some really impressive pieces of play from players who are in good form. And there are some players who could step up a little bit more. But you buy players, you bring players in, you construct your team, and then you put them in places where they can succeed. And if Paddy Lane, as we know, had a great time in League Two or League One 2 seasons ago, then we should be more like looking into what it was that he was doing and trying to replicate that for him. Not just saying, "All right, mate, go out there and express yourself." Like this isn't the 2000s anymore. It's not the early 2010s anymore when you can just send a team out in 4-5-1, tell them to be stodgy, and then go and express themselves, like a very Mourinho sort of tactic. I mean, what's Mourinho been doing recently? Flaming out in Turkey. So that style of football's gone. It's gone. And we need to be ready to move on. And this is what I was saying as well, where I'm a little bit concerned about the profile of some of the players that we purchased, because I just think that football is changing more and more and more every single year now. Go back and watch like peak mid noughties like Liverpool versus Chelsea games where you get like a lot of like Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard and that kind of stuff. They are playing hoofball like versus what you see today. It is unrecognizable. So I'm just think like the world, the football world is changing so quickly, and you need to adapt to it. And just using this old strategy of we'll just send out a team that's hard to beat and let them express themselves. That ain't how it works anymore. So yeah, looking for something a little bit more modern.
Moaning now, isn't it? Really? But you're right though. Like, it's a good point about Paddy Lane. Like, yeah, they're all just well out of sorts, to be honest.
You buy, I don't know, you buy players to you like Liam Fraser's another good example, right? Like you buy the player who was helming Crawley's midfield in their 3-5-2 for like a large part of last season, and then whenever you play him, you tell him to go play eight. Like,
Yeah,
guys, like, can we
it makes
play like
sense.
just joined up thinking? Like, it's the
Yeah.
basics. Like, just like, can we please, like, if you're going to purchase players and you don't have like a predefined style, then maybe like go and look at what they did previously and see if you can like work situations for them to like get that over and over again. Like, if I'm working with like a winger or something in a coaching situation, I'm like, your goal is to hit this particular spot over and over again. And then once we've got here, we can move from there. I don't know, man. Yeah, this is just moaning now. I'm really sorry, listeners, again. I'm throwing my chicken nuggets all over the place.
Maybe that.
Yeah,
Wasted
no.
them.
I am
And
wasting them.
also Panko crumbs getting out of the carpet will be a nightmare for
That
you.
is true. That is true. I don't want panko in
So,
my carpet. So, yeah.
I like the fact that you said stodgy and flaming in Turkey. I thought that was
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
Stodgy. Americans don't know what I mean when I say stodgy sometimes.
that's a great.
One of those
It's an
words.
underused word, stodgy.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny, like the so I'm eating arugula today, which is rocket in the UK, and the like herbs and spices and vegetables is actually like one of the places where American and English and British English are very different. Like we've got a lot of like zucchini, aubergine, courgette. Like all of these, or eggplant, like all of these different kind of like
Yeah.
words for these kinds of things. Football words on the field are also very specific to your nationality, I've learned from being
Like
over here.
cleats. What is a
Cleats,
cleat?
they like to say cleats. The Spanish speakers over here call them tacos. If you didn't know, as in like Mexican food, they call them tacos, which is great. They're either zapatos de football or tacos de football, which is great. So if you go right now and you type in tacos de football on Google, you're going to pull up like Dick's Sporting Goods, because it's going to be the version of the site in Spanish for you to go and
But
purchase.
what is a cleat?
A cleat is just a football boot. It's just a football boot. And then they have like different ways of defining it. Yeah, it's all very confusing.
Um, Georgie Dawes. Back
What's
to
up,
chickens
Georgie?
again, George. He says, try not to be doom and gloom, but it feels like the majority of fans are just waiting for the inevitable sacking of Hunt. Correct. The performances are just not up to scratch, and there's still no sign of improvement. It's usual caveat that I defo wanted Sellers sacked at one point.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, fair play. It, yeah, they're not. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think, homework for you and me, Ben, this week is to go back and listen to some October 2023 episodes of this podcast to kind of hear what we were saying about sellers, and we
yeah.
were
True.
just podcast babes at that point, and had no experience, behind us. But now, I'd be interested to know if we're moaning more, now versus back then. I think back then you could at least see that there was, and I'm okay. So I'm like one of my biases is definitely like I'm more biased towards modern style managers,
Yeah,
and to my detriment sometimes. Like that can be a blind spot for me in like my football analysis. I'm always going to pick a guy like Sellers over a guy like Hunt. But I think the thing that was different then for me that I remember is that you could at least see that there was like some thought going into the tactics, and they were trying to bring in an elite style that was from right then and there that was being used successfully in the
yeah.
Champions League by some teams. Whereas what we appear to be trying to do right now is a very dated, just very, again, stodgy tactic that most managers spent a lot of the last 10 years learning how to beat. So yeah, it's tricky.
I don't know if it's not doom and gloom. It's just, yeah, look, we're
It's
going to have pods like
reality.
this. Sometimes we just need to like, this is just, even if one person listens to it and goes, they came up with at least half a good point, great.
I think
But we're just
our editor
shooting the breeze.
our editor Sim made a really good point as well last week, where
He didn't.
when he was talking to us, when he said um, last year and the year before and the year before and it feels like forever the year before that, we all had this like one unifying thing to be annoyed about. It was always the ownership thing. That was together like that was the primary thing that we all knew was on our minds, and we all were trying to work at it together as a fan base. And
Mm.
now, there's more division, as there will be, because there's no existential threat. So now the threat is I have to watch another boring game, and I want the football to be better. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at.
Dan Moore has literally tagged in Rob Coig and Joe Jacobson to this one. Um,
She woke
how
up and
long
chose
has
violence.
Yeah, we'll just do it. Just stitch them right up.
Right.
How long has Noel got before our Coig and Joe Jacobson have a serious conversation about his future? Because at the moment, our football is very stale.
Yeah.
What else would you describe as stale? Like if you were going
Um,
to use the word stale,
yeah.
what context would you describe it in?
So imagine you've baked some bread and it's a
You
lovely
can for
piece of
bread.
bread, right? It's lovely bread. You've really had a good time with it and you've eaten half of it, but it's gone a little bit stale. Now, if you bake it in the oven with a bunch of like oil and pepper and salt, you can make croutons out of it. So stale isn't bad necessarily. You can rework stale, but this is not the best stale, I would say.
I I would describe air or atmosphere as stale.
True, true. Like damp, sort of a damp smell, if you will.
Yeah, you just things have been festering for a long time, and there's nothing better
Have
than
they
opening a
cleaned?
window, just
Have,
getting some air in.
have they cleaned the stadium manatees?
Um, I don't know.
No.
I need to
Okay.
check.
Yeah. All right. Look up.
I'll add that to my to-do list.
Thank you. Perfect. Yeah. Next game. Look up. Check manatee.
Yeah, okay. Max has got an American flag next to his name. I don't know if he's. Oh, let's have a look. Actually, hold on. Oh, it doesn't say. It doesn't say. What's your thoughts and opinions on Long Kelvin? Love the fact you've used Long Kelvin.
Do love a
I
long
love it when you
Kelvin.
like Des. Like loads of people call him Des, and I just think maybe that's because of us.
You're right. Right.
He's
I like.
been rubbish this season. He's been absolute toilet, and he was
He's
terrible last night. And I wish he's, not well. I don't know.
I was banging on at the start of the season about some sort of 4-4-2 that allows allows us to play like a 10 like we're doing in the 4-2-3-1 if we want to. And I think I would pick Kelvin to play on the left side, alongside Marriott there. But I mean like yeah, I mean he's another one that hasn't, really had like a defining moment yet this season. He hasn't really like I don't think he's really gotten going necessarily. I think he's always been a very streaky player. I think that he has had the tendency to go missing for almost months at a time, sometimes. So, that kind of tracks with what I normally expect from him. And I said at the start of the season, I'm not as big on Kelvin as the club appears to be. So yeah, I just tend to think again that there's probably a better way in which we could be using him, and getting him closer to Marriott is probably the way that I would do that, and trying some sort of strike partnership. But yeah, I mean he just he doesn't get into the game ever. I mean, like looking at his player traits chart, midfielders, wingers in League One, he's in the bottom 7% for a number of touches per game. So he's just and he outdoes that in terms of his like chances created and stuff like that. But we just can't get him the ball. The receiving seems to be a bit of an issue for Kelvin. So again, I think if you put him close to Marriott, a player who is I think pretty good at receiving the ball, and good at getting into
Mm.
space to receive the ball, then maybe Marriott can take care of some of that and lay it off for Kelvin, something like that. But again, I just think that we're still sort of searching for what that starting 11 is for Reading right now. We talked about Richie earlier in this pod. Does Kelvin make it in? For me, yeah, but in a very different way from how he's been played now.
I'm gonna have to rattle through these because I didn't realize the time. We've had a lot of information here. Loyal Royal, again, thank you for all the retweets and the interaction. Really, really appreciate that. Reflect on owners' recent comments, performances v results. What timeline should be working to so expectations can be managed. Green shoots of recovery, or are we kidding ourselves? What do we think of these low attended cup matches? We have a club. Um, I mean, let's pick the attendance of cup matches. Part of the problem is that Reading Borough Council aren't putting the buses on, so
Wow.
it's very
Yeah.
very difficult for people to get there.
Mm.
But do people want to spend an extra £10 in um, this current climate?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And you don't
yeah,
know,
they do.
what players you're necessarily going to see. I think that the Reading Swindon game was one that was exciting for Reading fans to be able to go
Being
to.
it
But
turns
like,
into like a
yeah, so yeah, you know what it's like. I think that that Reading Swindon game was one that fans are always going to want to go to, but I don't think that it used to be the Johnson's Paint Trophy, didn't it? I don't think that that trophy's ever been super well attended until the later rounds. So yeah, it is a bummer that like you can't get there. Obviously, that's going to limit people who can't drive over there. But I don't think people would go to those games really. Regardless, they're a bit. The car cup's a bit weird, isn't it? Really, it's felt a bit weird. I mean, the fact that it starts at 7 o'clock in the evening is all a bit weird too. So, yeah.
yeah. Tom Sheeran,
Mm.
this squad have the ability to play great football. This squad is playing terrible football. The results are bad. The atmosphere is dead. Without Marriott and Richie, we would be bottom of the league. The manager and coaching team need to go. Yeah, I think that's pretty much where we're at. I think, the atmosphere at games is not good, and you do worry if we didn't have Marriott and Richie in the team where we'd be.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Again, I think there is a slight Lewis Wing question in the team right now, and I think that if there's a way to move him a little bit further up the field to get him into spots to create for Reading more frequently, rather than having to be all the way back and working in the build up, I think that would be to the benefit of Reading. But yeah, because there, like he says, there's more than enough talent in this squad.
Yeah. Um, I think there was another interest. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. There was another one that, again, Max Royal, American flag. If you chaps were Noel, what would you do differently? Choose one thing that you'd do.
Uh, resign. No, what would I do differently? Well, I mean, I've talked about the 4-4-2 a lot of times. Yeah, let's just keep banging on this wing thing. I think there's a question with Wing as to whether the team is balanced best when he's there. So I would start experimenting with moving him higher up the field. I think that he would fight me on that. I think he wants to be further back on the field, but at the end of the day, like if you can't tell your players where you want them playing, then you're not the manager. So yeah, I would find some way to move him further up because we're really struggling for chance creation, and that's what he does.
Yeah. Um, I mean, final one is quite heavy. It's from Sam Richards. Thanks again, Sam. Nice to meet you the other week. Number one, performances were well under par and not showing improvement. Constant interviews when Noel sees a game much more positively than the majority of others. The situation around Ben Elliott's role. Ben Elliott's an interesting one because I don't think he's covered himself in glory in the past two cup games. I think he, I think he's been pretty poor by the expectations that maybe we have as a fan base for him. What did you make of Ben Elliott, particularly last night, and potentially leaning to West Ham last week?
Yeah, I think that Ben Elliott's had a tricky start to the season, and I think that this this 10 position, it's the first time that he was in that position last night. So there are going to be some growing pains, but again, U18s, U21s from MK Dons, and we'd like to see a little bit more. I think that though, really, he's just run into the same issue that the same issue that every Reading player has kind of run into this year, and that if the system isn't there to complement your skills, then you're going to have a hard time. And I think that also he's fallen into that kind of the best player at Reading is the one who's on the bench kind of attitude, where whereby because we're not playing well as a team, like there's always this like, okay, well if we just bring him in or we just bring him in, and I think that the fact that that keeps showing up is part of what proves that it's not personnel related. So
Yeah.
I think that he created some chances, or he was the one who was probably looked the most dangerous last night. To be honest, he had that shot that he blared just over at the end of the first half. He was the one who got into space for the Chirwa cutback after the ball hit the corner flag. So I thought he was okay. But again, I just think that you're right about the expectations. Like it is like everyone's expectations of any player who's not playing. Like Matt Ritchie, I'll tell you right now what's going to happen this weekend in this game. Okay, Matt Ritchie will start. Matt Ritchie will do very little for 60 minutes. We'll take him off and we'll bring someone else on. Someone else will play pretty well for 20 minutes and we'll get a jammy 1-1 or something like that. It's just going to keep happening that we keep clamoring for players to start. Then they just do exactly what the other players would do in the same system. I don't think that starting Ritchie would necessarily cause wholesale change. I do think he's a really good player. I probably would have him starting. But yeah, that's kind of what I think.
Let's do the preview trip down to Exeter. Um, yeah, let's do that now. Final part of episode 434. Right, welcome back to the last part of this week's episode.
Welcome
We're going,
back.
yeah, welcome back, man. We and ladies, obviously.
And
Uh,
ladies.
we're going to Exeter,
Mm.
17th in the league, 12 points, so two above us. Well, actually, two above us, full stop, actually. Kind of lower end of the form table. Massive result against high flying Lincoln. 90th minute goal, would you believe,
Oh,
to take all the points. That was what they call a coupon buster. I think a lot of people had
a,
Lincoln down
a
to
what?
win that
A
one.
coupon duster?
Buster.
Oh, Buster. Okay. Oh, it's in like
The
an
pools.
anchor. Like
Yeah, the
a yeah,
pools.
yeah. Okay.
So I'm
Yeah.
actually I'm not even going to go into it, but
No,
yeah,
yeah.
just Google it.
They
Coupon
call them
buster.
parlays in America for any Americans. Anyway,
They
carry on.
they call they call cleats. They call football
Cleats.
boots
Yeah, I don't
cleats.
know what they're talking about. So yeah.
Um, Look, what can we say?
Jaden Wareham's going to score. That's what we can say.
Jaden Williams going to score.
He's definitely going to score. He's got 2 goals, 1 assist since joining Exeter. Imagine if we had just kept Jaden
Is
Wareham where
that
those.
it?
Yeah, that's it. But how many goals does Marco Mane, who was ostensibly his replacement, brought in the same time? So, would you rather have Jaden Wareham or Marco Mane?
Oh, don't
Yeah. So, Jaden Wareham
don't don't even put
definitely.
me in that position.
It's a little
Honestly,
bit sad, actually, isn't it, that he's over there too? Because if you remember, this was the away game that I was at last year. Always pick one, and Jaden Wareham scored in the first minute.
yeah.
Really nice goal in the teal kit that night. So yeah, they haven't been great recently, and in the expected table as well, they're not really any further ahead of. They're basically where they should be. They're a pretty middling to poor League One side, and this is again a team that we should be able to take the game to, a team that we should be able to create against. I think this is a team that doesn't create very much themselves, so there's not a huge amount of threat there. And so again, like maybe an opportunity to take a player like Wing, who is one of your best chance creators, and move him, further forward. I don't necessarily think you lose much defensively anyway when you do that, but especially if you put Fraser or someone like that there. But against a team that isn't creating very much, you want to be taking a few more risks. You want to be, really bringing the game to them. So, yeah, I think the most important thing though is that we don't concede a double deflected goal in the first 6 minutes. That would probably be helpful to our chances.
Is it another game already that we're looking at saying don't lose?
Uh,
Because the games for us now. So we have Exeter away,
yeah.
we have Cardiff away, and then I believe we have Doncaster at home. I think it's Doncaster at home. I haven't looked
Cardiff's going to be a really tough one, so
like
we'd quite like to have a win ahead of that, really, wouldn't we? Otherwise, you're looking at potentially in 2 weeks' time, being pretty firmly locked in the relegation zone.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that becomes tricky. Cardiff is not going to be an easy
Mm-mm.
vibe at all. I think it's Doncaster.
Yeah,
Can
I
you have
think
a
you're
quick
right.
look
Uh,
so that we don't look like complete idiots?
we're only previewing the Exeter game right now. It's fine. It's totally
Yeah,
fine. It's Northampton, then Doncaster. So
Northampton away. No, home.
Northampton at home and then Doncaster. Yeah, we got a 3 game week between the 18th and well, actually, it's a 3 game week now. Oh no, sorry, it's 3 game week the week after this. So this week is the team only has to play 1 game, and then after that, it's game Saturday, game Wednesday, game Saturday. So coming into the crunch time in the season when the games come thick and fast,
Like Northern Gravy.
like Canadian pines down a river in Alberta. Yeah, that was a very
There'll be a
Ben
fraction of
Thomas.
people that understand that reference.
Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine. But yeah, we could really do with a win, couldn't we? I mean, this is one of the few teams in the league with a lower goals per match ratio than us. So I mean, like this is yeah, this is the one. Yeah, you gotta put together a decent performance in this, and if you can't, especially compared directly with how we played here last year,
Yeah.
where we were excellent in the first half
Hmm.
against Exeter, I think that'll be very telling because this Exeter team hasn't really progressed since then. So yeah, they really, for the sake of just looking for a performance as well, got to get that win.
All right. Well, that wraps up episode 434. Sorry, we're a bit negative. Sorry about
Sorry.
it. So
Sorry. Horseshoe of sadness.
we're
Sorry.
trying, but it's you can't roll a broken wheel down a road.
Horseshoe of sadness, wheel of pain, roller skate of injury, and shin pad of boredom. That's where we're at.
Football taco.
Football taco. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, tacos to football, but not the
Yeah.
fun time kind.
Nah,
Get me
exactly.
out
Yeah.
of here. I'm so tired.
Right. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the leftover chicken nuggets that you've got,
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wish I
and
could send
we'll
some your way.
yeah, we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. That was the creaking of my brain, if you were wondering what the rude sound was. And we'll see you next week. Come on, you ass.